Yeah, a very good evening, everybody. So this is the second day and the evening session of this third season of the presentations. The students of batch 2021-23 are making presentations. Second day, second evening slot here. And in this session, we will have presentations by the students. Let me share a screen and let us see who is going to make presentation on and which are the topics on which you are going to make your presentations. So in this slot we will have the sequence will be like first presentation will be by Vachchalata on Salman Rushdie's life and works, followed by Nirav Amreliya, and he will read on contemporary relevance of the poem One-Eyed and Eklavyam by Meena Kandasamy. Uh, Nilay will make presentation on three prose writers, Radhakrishnan, Raghunathan, Raghunathan, and Nirad Chaudhuri. Yeah. Then Nidhi, DoE will make presentation on hybridity in Midnight's Children. Nehalba Gohil on an introduction by Kamala Das. Mayuri will read on Midnight's Children as a post-modern novel. Khushboo will read on Indianness used in the poetry of Nissim Ezekiel. Jheel will make presentation on comparison between Nissim Ezekiel's The Patriot and Robert Browning's The Patriot. Janvi will read on Magic Realism in Midnight's Children. Uh, so this will be the presentations for this session. As you all are aware, we are gathering all the PPTs in Google Classroom. All the students are submitting their work in Google Classroom, and through this they are making the presentations also. The presentations are evaluated by teacher on a rubric of 7 criteria, and which includes subject knowledge, organization of their ideas, uh, verbal skills, elocution, art of clear speaking, mechanics of writing, grammatical errors or spelling errors, uh, non-verbal skills like eye contact, body language, enthusiasm, the way they reflect while making presentation is being judged. In research, citation and originality is being checked. So how the sources are taken, qualitative sources, and how are they integrated to support claims made by the speaker in their presentation. And finally, whether the sources which are cited are properly documented or not. So MLS style is what we expect that everybody follows. So on that parameter, we try to see whether it is properly being documented or not. So on this rubric, teacher evaluates students' performances. Uh, uh, in Google Classroom, rubric based assessment, and students are also doing their peer evaluation of oral presentation. They also are given a specific rubric on this blog which they have to study and evaluate their own classmates, as well as do self evaluation also of the presentations. An online form is shared with everybody on which they keep on evaluating the students there. So that is at the end of the day they evaluate each other and also do self evaluation on this platform. So this is the system in which we are doing this presentation. The live streaming also we are doing, and the things are live streamed on this platform. Let me share a screen to see where it is live streamed. We are streaming it live on through a website which is which has all student webinars. Since Corona times, we started this system of streaming live, and it helps us in recording all the presentations which are made by the students. So number 13, the last one here at number 13 is the ongoing season of the presentations. The season is going to run up till 7th of October, and we have here. So this is yesterday's presentations here, and today's presentations are here. The morning session was streamed here, and this is the ongoing one here. So the live streaming of the presentation, which is ongoing, is getting reflected here. So this is where the students can follow. We have the other half of the class. If they want to observe or they want to listen any of the presentations, they can attend the live session here. And the other semester students also who are going to make presentations after 1 week, if they want to get some ideas, then they also can watch live streaming or the recorded things on this platform. So let us start today's session with the first presentation by Vachchalata. Yes, so Vachchalata, you can start the first presentation. Just a reminder to everybody, by the time the presentation is ready, you have to ask a question. At least two students will be asking question, but you have to type your question first, and then you have to read the question when the turn comes. So first you have to type your question, so we can also check the language and the way you are asking the question. So we can work on if we are making any mistake, linguistic mistake or grammar mistake in asking the question. Also, you'll be typing your question and then you'll be reading that. In case uh,
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Today is the second day of presentation, and today I am going to deal with Salman Rushdie's life and his works with controversies. Today I am going to deal with life of Rushdie, controversies of his life, satanic verses as a cinematic narrative, victim into a protagonist, midnight children, demonizing discourse in Rushdie's The Satanic Verses. Salman Rushdie was born in India in 1947, and he was a British American novelist. He he was the he is the author of 13 novels, uh, which contains Midnight Children, The Satanic Verses, The Moor's Last Sight, The Ground Beneath Her Feet, and so on. His 14th novel is the fourth. His 14th novel is the forthcoming from the Random House in the fall of 2019. These are some cartoon images of the controversy which happened after the publish he published the novel The Satanic Verses. Salman Rushdie is also the author of the book of stories East and West and four works of non-fiction Joseph Anton, memoir by Joseph Anton, Imaginary Homelands, The Jaguar Smile, and The Step Across This Line. He is the co-editor of Mirror Works, an anthology of contemporary Indian writings of the 2008 Best American Short Stories Anthology. This newspaper is telling about when Khomeini uh, released a fatwa to kill Salman Rushdie. It says Khomeini says authors should die for verses. This is the very recent incident of Salman Rushdie, where some man named Hadi Matar stabbed him in a conference. It says in the midst of an audience of 2015 people, the celebrated Indian American author Salman Rushdie was grievously injured in a stabbing attack. Here is what we know so far. The Satanic Verses uh, is the novel about referencing. It is about the references to the Islam might cause some ripples. When Salman Rushdie wrote this novel, The Satanic Verses, in September 1988, he expected that few mullahs would be offended, call me names, and then I could defend myself in a public. Rushdie would much tell in an interview later. The Indian-born author, had come from a career as advertising copywriter. He had no idea of the tsunami of outrage that was overshadow the rest of his life, or that he was about to become a geopolitical trap. He already needed a bodyguard in the face of the deluge of death threats, cancelling trips, and hunkering down. One Muslim majority country after another banned the book, and in December, thousands of Muslims demonstrated in Bolton, Greater Manchester, and burned a pile of the books in the Islamabad. Six people were killed in a mob attack on the U.S. Cultural Center in the Pakistani capital to protest against the book. There was riots in Srinagar and Kashmir too. The day after the riots, in 14th February 1989, the supreme leader of Iran, Ayatollah Khomeini, issued a religious decrees, a fatwa calling on Muslims to execute not just Rushdie but everyone involved in the book's publication too. The Satanic Verses. The narrator suggests that there are places which the camera cannot see. This statement embodies one of the novel's focal concerns with the differences between how an engaged, omniscient narrator apprehends the novel's events and how the camera apprehends them. Rushdie juxtaposes a questioning, engaged narrator who is preoccupied with the nature of good and evil, justice and mercy, and revenge. Victim into protagonist, Midnight Children's and the post-Rushdie national narratives of the 80s. In 1981, publication of Salman Rushdie's Midnight Children was a watershed in the post-independence development of the Indian English novel. So much so that the term post-Rushdie has come to refer to the decade so afterward in which the wave of novels appeared by established as well as by young writers that were clearly influenced by Midnight Children. Midnight Children neither denies nor seeks to transcend polarities by embraces them as artistic methods, rejecting nothing, celebrating the resulting chaotic multiplicity, even if it crushes the protagonist himself into a billion pieces. What had been the Indian English novel's problems now suddenly became our trademarks. When Midnight Children was published in 1981, winning that year's prestigious Booker Prize, it was hailed both in and out India as a literary masterpiece. In an early interview, Rushdie characterized Midnight Children as more a political novel than a historical novel. and most of all as novel about the nature of memory, about one person's passage through history, in which the individual's version of the truth was presented as at once coherent and suspect. This personal view of history, Rushdie explained, allowed him to explore the nature of the relationship between the individual and history, between private lives and public affairs. Demonizing discourse in Salman Rushdie's The Satanic Verses. Salman Rushdie's The Satanic Verses is one of the most relatively few works of fiction to have made a significant and permanent impact outside the enclosed world of literature in 1988, and in 1989 it made its author to go into hiding from the Ayatollah Khomeini's fatwa, and where he has remained under government protection ever since. Freedom of expression, in effect of Rushdie's claims for fictional discourse and imaginative from the truth, where freedom reigns in places of institutional control. Fiction, he maintains, can flout facts and still appeal to the world of the imagination to claim that it represents the true or authentic transcription of human experience. Thank you. This is the citations.
Vachchhalata, my question is, what is your opinion towards the society who isn't able to accept the literary work as a work of art?
Sorry, repeat.
What is your opinion towards the society who isn't able to accept the literary work as a work of art?
The reason behind it is when we live in a country which is more religious than more practical, so that maybe made that novel banned. It is also banned in India, the novel Satanic Verse. So it hurts the human sentiments as they are more religious than practical. That's why it is not.
There is mic problem. So you have to check which mic is used by StreamYard when you are connecting there. Which by default any other mic is taken. I think yesterday also was that problem that voice was not being taken. In the settings, if you can see which mic is used, or you can test the mic by speaking something, and if you check the frequency, you will be able to know.
Well, fatwa is a thing which is we can say call out to a person who hurts the religious sentiments of a person, in which Iran's Ayatollah Khomeini released a fatwa to to kill Salman Rushdie because he hurt the sentimental of religious community. That's why this fatwa is not something to follow according to me, but it is about someone's religious sentiments. Thank you.
Check your mic properly. See what is the sound problem. I hope you know how to check the mic now. Make some voice and check whether it is working properly or not.
Hello, is my voice coming there? Hmm? Okay, so is it visible on your screens? Okay. Yes, thank you, sir. So, being the second day of my presentation of the third season, I have taken the topic that is contemporary relevance of the poems One Eyed in Eklavyam, written by Meena Kandasamy. So, it is the paper number 202, Indian English Literature, Post Independence. So, let us, and before going further in the slides, I would like to tell all the viewers that I have hyperlinked all the images. A few are left, but their information, any further information, if you want, then you can tap on the images for that. Yes, so let us begin. So, first poem I have taken is that Eklavyam by Meena Kandasamy. So, let us read first. It is quite a short poem. So, you can do a lot of things with your left hand. So, you means here Eklavya. And it is told or it is addressed to Eklavya by Guru, this Dronacharya. So, besides, fascist Dronacharya's warrant, left-handed treatment. Rather, the speaker is addressing to the Eklavya. Also, you don't need your right thumb to pull a trigger or hurl a bomb. So, so very ironically, things are put like that. If you are not having your fullest capability, even if you are good enough, still you cannot use this bomb and all the things. So it means that you are good, but people will consider you bad because you belong to so and so community here. So here I have taken some contemporary reference as the topic goes that PhD students fight against caste discrimination raised Dalit's hopes. So bullied by here. So bullied by academic staff, barred from the university laboratory, and even denied a chair. Deepa P. Mohanan. So here is the South Indian student who is a PhD scholar right now. And see Deepa P. Mohanan, despite of ever being able to finish her PhD as a low caste Indian woman, but then she decided to fight back. Here now, what Mohanan has to say. I desperately want to finish my PhD and realized that it would not be possible till I publicly called out the campus discrimination I had faced for years. So she was suffering, and this article was taken from the Deccan Herald. So how still? So the core thing of my presentation is that how this caste discrimination or the community-based discrimination is happening in India till the date. Even people will say we are constitutionally free, we are socially, economically, and politically all the free, but no, it is not thing. Still, this kind of news are the evidence for this discrimination. And here, that the prevalence of caste-based discrimination in Indian universities has been an open secret for decades. So, see, this wire and all these articles are taken. And another interesting thing is like, so here is the book, The Caste Discrimination and Exclusion in Indian Universities, a critical reflection by N. Sukumar. So here it is also hyperlinked, so you will get to know about the book, and you will find I have put an image like that person is telling why that girl is sitting away or she separately, why she is being othered by the students and by his, teachers also. Then it raises the question like, so in 2013, recent years, in 2013, 28 professors, now even imagine the professors of the universities, they are not even uh, free from this discrimination. The professor, 20 professor from University in Hyderabad, implemented themselves in a writ petition related to caste-based discrimination before the Andhra Pradesh High Court. Their letter noted. So now what they had to say in the petition they have given to the Andhra Pradesh High Court, like students from marginalized groups also are troubled. So it means students also, along with us, are troubled by this lack of clarity and sometimes contradictions in examination and administrative procedures. Rulers that do not take into account their difficulties, rules, and discretionary and biased treatment from the administration. For example, see, these are some words that are heard by these authorities. Like if you go in this chamber and they would say, "Don't waste my time. Go away. Come tomorrow. I am busy now. Your presence irritates me." So this last one is the last spoken by a deputy registrar sitting in an air-conditioned room have become routine. So these are the routine words. Like still how this casteism is practiced in university level as well. So how later on this social aspects. So now on 17th January 2006, so the following years subsequent, 27-year-old PhD scholar Rohit Vemula. So it is very serious case here. In the recent year 2016, we are having this case like PhD scholar Rohit Vemula committed suicide at the University of Hyderabad campus. So this South is still like orthodoxical society there. He was one of the 5 Dalit students who had been suspended from the hostel facility by the executive council of the university. So they were suspended. I don't know the reason though. And then he committed suicide due to several reasons. So here you will find I have taken a picture of the supporters after the suicide of this Rohit Vemula happened. And if you can see here on the left hand side of the left hand side here, this then thumb now life. How long will deny Eklavyam? So here also the reference of Eklavyam time and again keep on coming in front of us. Whenever this injustice is happening in the society, then the people will directly go to the Eklavyam. The reference of Eklavyam and the sequence of Guru Dronacharya and Eklavyam in the Mahabharata epic. So here, then thumb, it means at that time you took the thumb of Eklavyam and now life. Now you are taking life. So there is no change. But there is the version form of this discrimination, like. And it is also hyperlinked. If you click on that, you will get to redirect to the something link here. And one-eyed. So we are moving ahead to the next poem, that is one-eyed. Let us read it first. The poet sees just another noisy child. The glass sees an eager and clumsy hand. The water sees a parched throat slaking thirst. But the teacher sees a girl breaking the rule. The doctor sees a case of medical emergency. The school sees a potential embarrassment. The press sees a headline and a photo feature. Dhanam sees a world torn in half. Her left eye lid open, but light slipped away. The price for a test drop that touchable water. So we will refer to the irony, how ironical language is used here. Verbal irony is separate. So here I have taken a kind of picture, like you said. No changes in India. Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav that was recently there. Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. So here see the irony is see the irony in the name. It is Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. So are we really free? Then we will be referring to the some further real life cases how discrimination is taking place. So it will not do to just spray the things if the froth is there. We have to identify and we have to solve this. And here you will find these 2 pots are placed, and it is also happening. So you will tap on that, you will get to the things like this pink color stand. It is for the upper caste teacher. It is not for the students. It is for the teacher. It is in the Gujarat. You will perhaps in Surat it is there. So in Gujarat, this pink is for higher caste caste teacher, and this green one is for lower caste teacher. So let alone students, we are talking about the teachers. Now people would say education is the building base of any nation. So if the building base is separated in, then how will it tie the nation together in a chain? Now here it is the very well-known case, and a 9-year-old Dalit boy, a student of a private school in Rajasthan, Surana village. So Rajasthan again, India, quite the boundaries touching to the Gujarat. So died on Saturday days after he was allegedly beaten by his school teacher for touching the drinking water. So the same case goes on, like in this this one-eyed poem. There is a girl who is touching the water, this pot, and the boy is also touching the untouchable water, like. And news agency PTA reported. So there was a teacher, 40-year-old teacher. So you can imagine, now we can say the age is not a matter for the knowledge of one. So but the knowledge comes from the thinking process, what one has in mind. So this age does not matter in the field of knowledge. So yeah, yes. This 40-year-old teacher Chail Singh, who allegedly beat the boy, has been arrested and charged with murder and under section of the Scheduled Caste and Scheduled Tribe Prevention Atrocities Act. So there are several acts regarding to just vindicate this SC/ST tribe. So the incident took place on July 20. The victim's father said. Now, what the victim's father has to say: the boy suffered a serious injury to his face, became unconscious after receiving the beating. Okay. So the Rajasthan chief ministers and then they will allow a kind of this assistant of rupees 5 lakh, and they will throw some tinsels like being politicians. It is their duty, but they will not return their boy. So they are not just identifying the problem, what problem is really there. They are just doing the things like, okay, if you are having some problem, then we will give you some money, and your problem will be rectified. But it is not the case. The problems are there, but the cause is yet unidentified. And even if it is identified, nobody is taking steps to remove that cause, and that is what is restraining any nation from real progress. Okay, then this another point is that apathetic and capitalistic zeitgeist of the prevailing postmodern age. So how apathy is having and capitalist, because people are now becoming money centric. See, these lines from the poem highlight the apathetic and capitalistic tendencies of postmodern people who have become money centric, neglecting the lives of rest living species around them. As it is unarguably stated, that literature captures time wherein it is written. This applicability is seen everywhere. Why? See here. Let us see. But the teacher is a girl breaking the rule. So generally, we identify teachers as they are the guardians of rules of the school. But they should be. There is no denial of it. But what kind of rules are made? So is there any bias or is there any kind of prejudice in this rule? Then we have to refute that rule. So here it was like in Dhanam's case and in this boy's case also who died. So and here's the in the second line like this. But the teacher sees a girl breaking the rule. Then the girl is swept away and she lost her left eye. And the boy here in this real case, the boy lost his life. Okay. So the doctor sees a case of medical emergency. Now the doctors are supposed to be like this servant of the society, but now they are serving the money. So for money they can do anything like that. So it is also said that these three things should be free of cost in any nation. Like the first is medical service, another is education, and third one is like security. But we find this security yet it is exempted from this monetizing process. But this education now privatization of schools are there. Is there other, and these private hospitals and private clinics are also there in nearby. So that is why this money centricism or capitalism is seen here. The doctor is a case of medical emergency, so the doctor has nothing to do with the girl or with this the girl who has faced the unjust practice for her. So and then the school sees a potential embarrassment. Now what happens that like uh, being in a school, if you do something, then all these trustee or all these principals will tell, okay, you are besmirching our identity as a school. So because they want to establish not in the positive way but the negative way, they want money, not the progress of student. That is why they do these things. Like, and here this. The press sees a headline and photo feature. Now the press is clearly that wherever they don't require any change in the society, it seems so. But they are just running for the photo feature because the TRP. Here I have taken a photo that BSRC. It is the Indian organization and this TRP television rating point. So which channel is having more television rating point, they will get big amount of money. So here you will find big news. They will just make a sensation out of the society and they will just earn the money. They rather not are even concerned to change. It seems in these days anything in the society. And here the student is sitting on the money, like this privatization is taken here, and this parents fees and educational institute authorities. So that is why we prefer this government schools education institute where we can send the children to study, and here the doctor and the things are taken. So this ironical representation of this poem is also very artistically beautiful. And here see, and the second stanza like this. Dhanam sees a world torn in half. That we know her left eye is not there. Her left eye lead open, but light slipped away. But the price for a taste of that touchable water. So now the water is touchable, but it is if touched by this lower caste community, then it becomes untouchable. So the irony, see, And see here, this Article 15 is taken like prohibition of discrimination. So it is the reference from the Constitution of India. Like in Article 15, the word for word reference is taken like prohibition of discrimination on grounds of religion, race, caste, sex, here means gender, or place of birth. And it is located in Part 3 Fundamental Rights Constitution of India there. And, and there is an interesting movie that Article 15 also. And this, let us read this. The ironical lines thoughtfully put by the poet showcases the facile claims acclaiming the abolishment of untouchability. So we know that Constitution of India was framed in 1949. So still we have 70, like some 70 to 75 years after that. Still this untouchability is not removed. Even it is there in the Constitution, but not from the lives or the day-to-day lives of the people. So it is the concern that we have to identify and that we have to remove that thing, which is hindering the process of progress. It indicates the discriminatory practices by calling the pot water touchable, which was naively touched by the untouchable girls, who eventually is beaten up by the upper caste teacher, getting her left eye impaired due to slap. So this happens, like that boy was slapped by his teacher, and so this change. Then Article 17 is also interesting, though it has many subclause, like it stretches to the six subclause, but the main feature of the main headlines are like this. Article 17, it reads like abolition of untouchability. So it is striking here. Untouchability is abolished. And see, right now, what are they writing? Untouchability is abolished. It means it should have no this existence in any form. But right now we are finding it has, definitely. So we are having ample evidence of that. Untouchability is abolished and its practice in any form is forbidden. Okay, it is forbidden, but still these things are happening. Yeah. The enforcement of any disability arising out of untouchability shall be an offence punishable in accordance with law. So it is also coming from the third part, Part 3 Fundamental Rights Constitution of India. So we are, despite having such laws, despite having the strictures upon this, though these people are practicing, because being a teacher, you just imagine the things. Okay, yes. So let alone the students, let us move further. Now it is the concluding slide, like bringing the topic to an end. We hope for betterment of the society through its people who are the bricks of their nation as a fort and who also are required to change their mindsets by coming out of the age-old notions, conventions and traditional beliefs which are but the hindering restraints towards advancing steps of human progress. The words of see here I have taken some words by Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, who also fought for the rights of untouchables. Yes, the words of Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi is befitting here. Like what Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi has to say with context, with reference of this untouchability problem or issue here in the nation. Like, I think we are committing a great sin in treating a whole class of people as untouchables, and it is owing to the existence of this class that we have still some revolting practices among us. So revolt. Yesterday, Nilay was asking why revolt happens. Revolt happens because you are not given your right. That is why revolt happens. Because if you are having your ample right, then why do you go in the road and shout for your right? You are not having that. That is why you are going. And nowadays people are just calling them this demons and all kind of things, Naxal, urban Naxal and all kind of things. So it is taken from the section 2, extracts from letters. So caste system and untouchability extracts from Gandhi letters from selected works of Mahatma Gandhi. So it is there, like here are my works cited, and okay, yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Now questions, please. Yeah. So, Janvi, your question is that how does the caste system affect society in India nowadays? Well, we are having ample example. Taking life is the worst form of this practice of caste system. Okay, so it is the worst form, and like if you just observe in the media on the society, like you will find some people are there. Okay, they will not allow you on the grounds of your caste. They will ask you caste first. What caste do you belong to? And they will ask for religion, anything else. So they are focusing on caste. On that basis, they will converse with you. And in what quantity I should be engaging with myself with these people. So the caste system is affecting yet. And right now we are seeing at the university level, it is practiced. Then I think there is not any worst form or worsen form than this. So want more or satisfied? Okay, yes. Thank you.
Nirav, my question is how shall we prevent this class discrimination and gender biasness? And who's lying behind this all?
Okay, wow. So your question is how can we end or how can we take this to an end or prevent rather? Because preventing means you are pausing and it can be continued. So we have to end this, right? So like then see first like how shall we prevent this caste discrimination? Well, we have to remove it from this constitution. No, not in the constitution. What I'm talking is like right now in any like there are these four sectors that SC, ST, SCBC and this general. OBC, SCBC, and general, and there are other things like minorities. So on that ground, people do discrimination. Okay, they will nowadays what are happening in earlier days people would on face they will refute you like what caste you are, then I don't want you to be with me. But nowadays what is happening like they will ask you, okay, they come and they will slightly ask you, okay, which caste do you belong to, and then the things happens, okay sir, that is fine, we don't have any problem, but still they are having within them, so they will not allow you from these basic things you want from them. So in that way, it is happening in that. And as far as this ending process is there, then there is a girl in I forgot. I will share that link in group. Uh, there is a girl in South who got this certificate, no caste, no religion certificate in the South. It's like Deepa perhaps like this. No caste, no religion certificate. It can also be issued for you. And but what happens on the grounds of that? You will be exempted from all the rights given to you under these subcategories like SCBC, OBC, and this SC, ST thing, general. So in that way, you can end. But it is an individual attempt. So people have to be more conscious that we should not, identify these people on the basis of caste and all the things like. And now the second part: who is lying behind this all? None other than these politicians, because they want their seat secured in parliament or wherever they want to go. So they will speak whatever liked by the people. They will not tell the truth. Okay, this article is there, article 15, 17, all the things are given to you, so you should not do this. But they will just give allowance to the family of the victim so that they can, okay, we are good enough, we are giving you this recompensation. No, it is not the case. You have to identify the problem, you have to kill the problem, you have to kill the cause of the problem. Only then and then you can make some this even floor for everybody to perform themselves and express themselves. Satisfied or not? Okay, okay then. Thank you.
Hello, I am Nilay Rathod, and today I am going to present on three prose writers, Indian prose writers, Radhakrishnan, Raghunathan, and Nirad Chaudhuri. These are my information. First, we have Radhakrishnan, Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan. We generally know him as the President of India and a professor, teacher. He was born on 5 September 1888, on which we celebrate Teachers' Day every year. Natively, he was known as Radhakrishnan. Born at Tirupati, Radhakrishnan had his education at Tirupati Vellore and Madras Christian College. Best known of the three means Radhakrishnan, Raghunathan, and Nirad Chaudhuri. Radhakrishnan is a philosopher, a statesman, mean politician with an international reputation, a scholar with a phenomenal memory, and a resourceful and eloquent and effective speaker, and a voluminous writer with uncanny flair, lucidity, and grammatic strength. As a teacher of philosophy and a writer, Professor Radhakrishnan held on tendency and a sense of dedication to a course chosen 60 years ago. He has taught at Madras, Mysore, Kolkata, and Oxford University. He has been Chancellor of Andhra and the Banaras Hindu University. He, he has presided over UNESCO General Conference and the All India Writers Conference. He has been president of the Sahitya Academy. He has delivered the Kamala, Bampton, Haskell, Miller, Upton, and Hilbert lecture. He has addressed the World Congress of Faith and most of the university convocations in India. After independence, he became chairman of the Universities of Commission and India's ambassador of Soviet Russia, vice president, and finally president of India. He was second president of India and first vice president of India. He completed his master's thesis on the ethics of the Vedanta and its metaphysical presuppositions in his 20th year, and since then his pen name in the service of his mind has not been idle. Two of his professors, Reverend William Maston and Dr. Alfred George Hogg, condemned Radhakrishna's dissertation. According to Radhakrishnan himself, the criticism of Hogg and other Christian teachers of Indian culture disrupted my faith and shook the traditional crops on which I learned. Radhakrishnan himself described how, as a student, the challenge of Christian critics impelled me to make a study of Hinduism and find out what is living and what is dead in it. My pride as a Hindu, roused by the enterprise and the eloquence of the Swami Vivekananda, was deeply hurt by the treatment accorded to Hinduism in my missionary institution. The criticism led him to study Indian philosophy and religion. At the same time, he condemned Professor Hogg and said my distinguished teacher and as one of the greatest Christian thinkers we had in India. According to Iyengar, Professor Radhakrishnan subjected the thought of Western thinkers, for example, Bergson, William James, and Bertrand Russell, to a searching examination in light of the absolutist thought of the Upanishad and in his The Reign of Religion in Contemporary Philosophy. He elaborates that this book demonstrates Radhakrishnan complete intimacy with Western thought on the one hand and his complete mastery over English language on the other. Iyengar also argues that an idealist view of life is unquestionably Professor Radhakrishnan's most valuable contribution to constructive philosophy. For in it, East and West meet creatively and achieve a voice of articulation intelligent to all. Philosophy, Advait Vedanta. Radhakrishnan was one of the most prominent spokesmen of non-Vedanta. His metaphysics was grounded in Advait Vedanta, but he reinterpreted Advaita Vedanta for a contemporary understanding. He acknowledged the reality and diversity of the world experience, which he saw as grounded in and supported by the absolute or Brahman. Radhakrishnan also reinterpreted Shankara's notion of Maya. According to Radhakrishnan, Maya is not a strict absolute idealism but a subjective misperception of the world as ultimately real. Accusation of plagiarism. One of his students accused him of plagiarism to steal his text or work. In January 1929 issue of the Modern Review, the Bengali philosopher Jadunnath Sinha made a claim that parts of his 1922 doctoral thesis, Indian Psychology of Perception, published in 1925, were copied by his teacher Radhakrishnan into a chapter on the yoga system of Patanjali in his book Indian Philosophy 2. Published in 1927, Sinha and Radhakrishnan exchanged several letters in the Modern Review, in which Sinha compared a part of his thesis with Radhakrishnan's publication, presenting altogether 110 instances of borrowings. Radhakrishnan felt compelled to respond, stating that Sinha and he had both used the same classical text. His translation was standard translation, and that similarities in translation were therefore unavoidable. He further argued that he was lecturing on the subject before publishing his book, and that his book was ready for publication in 1924 before Sinha's thesis was published. Next up, we have Nirad C. Chaudhuri. Nirad Chaudhuri, in a full Nirad Chandra Chaudhuri, was born in Kishoregunj, East Bengal, British India, now in Bangladesh. The second of 8 children of Upendra Narayan Chaudhuri, a lawyer, and of Sushila Sundarani Chaudhuri. His parents were liberal middle class Hindus who belonged of Brahmo Samaj movement. Chaudhary was a prolific writer even in the last year of his life, publishing his last work at the age of 99. Iyengar introduces Nirad Chaudhary as an unknown Indian till 1955 when his autobiography made him famous. He continues, Nirad Chaudhary is a master of prose style, an intellectual who has the courage to stand aside and be different from crowd, a critic of Indian society with an almost Swiftian capacity for making surgical probes. Each, in his own ways, has tried to interpret Indian history and thoughts, and altogether their approaches. His major works include his autobiography, The Autobiography of an Unknown Indian, published in 1951, put him on the long list of the great Indian writers. Chaudhary had said that the autobiography of Unknown Indian is more of an exercise in descriptive anthology than autobiography. It is stated that Chaudhary was hounded out of government service, deprived of his pension, blacklisted as a writer in India, and forced to live a life in penury. However, a sociologist, Edward Sale, who helped Chaudhary to immigrate to UK, stated in his article "Citizen of the World," Chaudhary retired at the compulsory age of 55, but was not eligible for a pension because he had not completed his years of service. It is also stated that furthermore, he had to give up his job as a political commentator in All India Radio as the government of India promulgated a law that prohibited employee from publishing memoirs. However, he did publish in non-government magazine. Chaudhary argued that his critics were not careful enough readers. The dedication was really a condemnation of the British rulers for not treating us as equal. He wrote in a 1997 special edition Granta. At the age of 57 in 1955, the For the first time, Chaudhuri went abroad. After coming back, he wrote a passage to England. In this book, he talked about his visit of 5 weeks to England. His later works include personal essays, biography, and historical studies. His works include autobiography, passages to England, Continent Circle, Intellectual in India, and so on. Last, we have Raghunathan. Raghunathan, better known by his pen name Vigneshwara, is a deep student of English and Sanskrit literature, and was for many years the leader writer of the magazine newspaper. But it was as the writer of the Soto was weekly co-series that he made a significant impact on the reader of Swatantra and Swarajya. One of our great journalists, and Raghunathan of the Hindu, became late in life the columnist who wrote under Sotos and signed himself as a Vigneshwar. After a lifetime of training in exacting a discipline in expression in a difficult foreign language, Raghunathan was now revealed himself as the perfect humanist and a flawless literary craftsman. Raghunathan was usually the conservative, unpopular, die-hard view. His ascent with tradition was apt to assume the tone of dissent from current notion of progress, and yet his view couldn't be dismissed as of consequences. For the undertones of ascent and dissent came with an accent of authority that compelled attention, if not acquisition. There was a certain challenge in Raghunathan's assumption of Vigneshwara. Vigneshwara is term generally derived from Indian mythology, like a king elephant, which is bulky and in size and slow. Raghunathan continued. The Sota was featured a decade ago, but series of essays has been collected since in the volume The Coming of Freedom, Our New Rulers, the Avadi Socialists, and the Planner's Paradise. He has also published Reasons and Intuition in Indian Culture, being his Madras University extension lecturer. But the essay seems to be his real forte. Some of the best essays in Soto was a collection could be said that they might be the elephant gods on salaries of the mind, whatever the subject, economics, politician, education, social life, literature, music, philosophy. It is touched with the seal of universalities. Spirituality, that is the philosophy that he was following, the culture of people, the complex of Swabhav, Swadharma, and Swatantra and Swarajya. That is the true index of culture. Indian spirituality isn't something opposite to life and world affirmation. Spirituality is an awakening to the inner or true reality of our being. But how does one achieve contact with ground? This alliance between intuition and reason, this clue to enlightened and wise living, Raghunathan calls Vivek. Without the continual exercise of Vivek, man would be but a fourth animal, a siege of a contradiction and frustrations. The integrated man is one who has achieved a harmony between himself and the world, his inner and outer life, his thoughts and his word. The man afflicted with pramad, the man without vivek, has a clouded consciousness that is known neither right measure, mantra, nor self-restraint, dhamma, but is a very prey to egoistic separativity and the misery arising out of it. Literature makes such a feat of a transcendence possible because the alliance of creative imagination and deep sensibility, which correspond to the two terms of intuition and reason. Iyengar also defends this philosophy of Raghunathan by stating that Raghunathan's feeling For tradition doesn't, of course, make him a strike in the mud, obscurity. He is fully aware of the tempo of change in this age of nuclear power and space travel. Change is easy and as dangerous as it is easy, but stagnation is no less dangerous. These are works. Thank you.
Yes, the typed questions are yet not reflected here. Yes, Nirav, you can.
So Nilay, my question is like, can we say that Raghunathan was totally interested in Indian philosophy, like this philosophy of being merged in Brahman, or being a Viveki person, or being a an enlightened one? So was he in kind of in any against of this philosophy, or he was in total conformity with that? Thank you.
So we can't assume he was totally into the philosophies, but we can say that he was more or less interested in Indian philosophy because he was born a Brahmin and his parents were associated with this Brahmo Samaj movement. And as we have seen that he was putting more stress on Indian philosophies like Vivek, Dharma, and all these things. So we can say that he was interested in Indian philosophies.
Nilay, who is more likely to be accepted as prose writer among these three? Who is more likely to accepted as prose writer among these three writers?
First of all, as Iyengar has also described in his book that these three are the best prose writer among the Indian English writers. So here we can't just make a claim that one of them is the best prose writer. But Iyengar also said that uh, Radhakrishnan is one of the best among the three. Like that was in my first light. So we can assume that.
Start. I am Nidhi. Today is the second day of our presentation. My presentation topic is hybridity in midnight children. Hybridity is a simple meaning that the sense of mixture, and the Gujarati we call it the word Sanskarta. This is my personal information introduction. The ways in which the novelist Salman Rushdie advocates a hybrid world, a world in which different and heterogeneity are not only tolerated but are eagerly celebrated as the means the culture newness in 21st century. Instantaneous communications of global economics and increasing migration of people across continue have a distinctly established all view of the formation of cultural identity. Salman Rushdie argued for a hybridity of culture, arranging that in the today's post-colonial, postmodern world, no one can or should try to retain a singular identity. In fact, he affirmed living between east and west or embrace the hybrid mixture of India is a positive thing, one which bring about newness of in the India. About the author, one of the most celebrated writers of our time, Salman Rushdie. Salman Rushdie is the author of 10 previous novels, Grimm's Midnight Children, for which he won the Booker Prize in 1981, the Booker of Bookers in 1993, and in 2008, the Best of the Booker. Salman Rushdie's other work like The Satanic Verse, uh, Heron of the Sea of Stories, the woods large sing, the ground of beneath her feet, furry Shalimar and Cloud, and the endlessness of Florence. He has also published four works of non-fiction, a collection of short stories and edited to fiction anthologies. In June 2007, Rushdie was appointed a Knight Bachelor by Queen Elizabeth II for service to literature. In May 2008, he was elected to the American Academy of Arts and Letters, and also in 2008, the London Times ranked Rushdie's 13 of their list of the 15 greatest British writers since 1945. Rushdie is currently working on the film version of Midnight Children. What is hybridity? Hybridity has historical roots in the legacy of colonial science. It has had a significant effect of cultural theory and post-colonial theory. However, its meaning has shifted over time. Hybridity is the mixture of religions, culture, and race. Hybridity has been used the author in the social science, literary, artistic, and cultural studies, a decision process in which the discrete social practice or structure that excited in separate ways combine to generate new structure, object, and practice in which the presenting elements are mixed. The use of hybridity is the humanities and the social science has been questioned due to biological origin of the concept. Particularly influence here has been the work of Mikhail Bakhtin, a pioneer linguist who theorized the political effect on hybridity in the language theorists of the hybridity. These are the Homi Bhabha, Nestor Garcia, Stuart Hall, Gayatri Spivak, Paul Gilroy, and Salman Rushdie. Homi Bhabha concept of hybridity. One of the most widely employed and the most disputed terms in post-colonial theory, hybridity commonly referred to the creation of new transcultural forms within the contact zone produced by colonization. Hybridizations take many forms like linguistic, culture, political, racial, and etc. The terms hybridity has been most recently associated with the work of Hobike Bhabha, who analyzed the colonizer relations, trace their interdependence, the mutual construction of their subjectivities in Bhabha contends that all cultures sentence, and systems are connected in the space that he called the third phase of enunciations. Cultural identity always emerges in the contradictory in ambivalent space, which for Baba makes the claim to a higher racial purity of cultural untenable for the recognition of this ambivalent space of cultural identity may help us to overcome the exoticism of cultural diversity in favor of recognitions of an improving hybridity within which cultural difference may operate. It is a significant that the productive complexities of the third speech have a colonial or a post-colonial province for a willingness to distance into that alien territory may opens the way of conceptualizing an international culture based not the exoticism of multiculturalism of the diversity of culture, but one of the inspiration of articulation of culture hybridity. Hybridity is a category of identity. Part of the challenge to define the Rushdie's persona of hybridity is a conceptions of the terms itself. Hybridity is also difficult to use in an analytic lens or principles because it is often assumed to be inherently positive and productive. Hybridity in Midnight Children, the novel's social and cultural hybridizations illusions through the multiple of different characters and the X stroke of midnight, August 15, 1947, Salim Sinai was born, a twin of the newly independent nation of India. The novel aligns Salim's narrative to the narrative of a newly independent India, creating an allegorical reading of his character. Midnight Children, importance and significant as a post-colonial text, arise from the novel's ability to intertwine three major themes: the creation of telling of story, the creation of the telling of a nation's and individual identity is a creation and telling of story. The novel expresses these themes of the creation and telling of history, identity, and story while simultaneously introducing the problem of post-colonial identity through connected and dependent form of hybridity. The term hybridity becomes defined as the combination and mixing of multiple screamingly opposing elements is a manner that maintains the various elements and characteristics. Midnight Children remain the embodiment of hybridity because every aspect of the novel is embedded with this mixing and melding the various elements and characteristics. The novel employs different levels of hybridizations is depending on each and other to exit the work within the text throughout which the novel illustrates India's emerging of post-coloniality. The novel employs the formal technique of magic realism. A hybrid, a realism is a supernatural thought, myth, and historical event, and Rushdie represent the ordinary events alongside fantastic elements. Midnight Children, inherently connected levels of hybridity, work together to the form of new picture of the India as the nation becomes a post-colonial land. Example of Midnight Children. We find the hybridity in Midnight Children. These culture are religions device clearly highlighted through the Salim's relationship with Shiva and Parvati. Salim's relationship with Shiva remains complicated because of the nature of their birth and relations. And those characters, we can say that religious are and cultural hybridity is present in India. Critical and fictive theorizations of hybridity, Bhabha's and Rushdie's. We find this both author is say about his view of hybridity. The culture theorizations of hybridity most commonly associated with Rushdie and his fictions are Baba. Samim Blake is in fiction across the borders, imagine of the lives of others in the late 20th century novel, notes that her project in devoted to the influential discoveries of hybridity symbolized by such theorist and novelist Homi Bhabha and Salman Rushdie. She said, implies the inherent similarities of Bhabha critical theorizations of hybridity with Rushdie's fictions one. Crucially, these apparent similarities suggest that contemporary power of Rushdie's fictions with regard his inscriptions of hybridity. Bhabha's work is often lauded for exposing the influence of system of power and mapping alternative within those systems. Bhabha is the foremost theorist of hybridity who measured contributions in the idea that the intercultural space where hybridity identities of former space of in between and limit stationary the same, the power to expose the inherent flow of the dominant cultural, political, and social system of the West might then be assigned to the hybridity theorized the Rushdie's work. Finally, the hybrid might carry implied of fertility and heterosexuality connotations that there are rooted in the initial colonization used to the term of that might exclude other possibility of what means to be hybrid. Indeed, the hybridity of the Rushdie's persona is defined through reference to Rushdie's children like those above certainly carries these implications. To conclude, the idea that newness can come into the world through the hybridity of the nations, the individual person, the language and use, the narrative of history through his collected work. In Midnight Children's, Rushdie's work to create a new way of viewing the history and of our nations, of our people, ones which allow room to diversity in a heterogeneity. And finally, Rushdie's use a unique Indianized from the English throughout these three foundation novels in order of questions to the established hierarchy of standard English over personal hybrid form of the language. This is my work site.
So, Nidhi, my question is: can Midnight Children make the same impact if we remove hybridity, the element hybridity, from the novel?
Yes, we seen in the Midnight Children which character of Salim, Shiva, and Parvati, and we connected. We connected that they all are connected each other, so we can impact. We can say that yes, this is definitely impact of Midnight Children can make remove the hybridity.
Hello, Nidhi. My question is like, can you tell why hybridity, why the idea of hybridity is seen as abominable identity by eugenists, so those who believe in pure blood thing. See, understand my question that there are this stratum of people like they believe pure blood of race, or they are racist people like. So why this hybridity is seen abominable by them or bad thing by them? Can you please? Thank you.
Sorry, I do not understand.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today is the second paper of our presentation. My topic is an introduction by Kamala Das. Kamala Das. Kamala Das was born 31st March 1934 and died 31 May 2009. She was a famous Indian poet and novelist who wrote in both English and Malayalam. Her mother tongue while writing in Malayalam, she used the pen name Madhuvikutty. She was born in Thrissur, Kerala, into a very privileged family. Her mother, Nalpat Brahmani Amma, was a well-known Malayali poet who had published around 20 collections of poems, and her father, V.M. Nair, was a senior executive in an automobile company and editor of the journalist uh, Matrabhumi works, Summer in Calcutta, The Desistant, The Old Playhouse, The Alphabet or Lost, A Doll for the Child Prostitute, Padmavati the Harlot, Memory of Childhood, about poem, Kamala Das' poem An Introduction was a first publication almost more than half a century ago in 1965 in one of her notable works of poetry, Summer in Calcutta. Being one of her earliest work, it strongly addressed some of Das' most prominent idea in the rawest form possible. His purely confessional poem clearly portrayed her cry to achieve a sense of freedom in life. The voice that narrates the poem is clearly direct, sharp, and unhesitant, in spite of being highly personal and revolving around the poet's own experience. Themes: finding the self, woman's struggle, female body, sexuality, sense of alienation, structure and forms. An introduction is a 59-line poem that consists of two stanzas. The first 37 lines comprise the first stanza and the remaining 22 lines form the second. The poem does not follow any particular metrical pattern, thus also refraining from using a set rhyming pattern. The length and number of syllables in the line also vary widely, making it a poem in free verse. Employing such a structure makes it simpler for the poet in experiment with different framework and more erratic rhymes. Literary device and poetic technique, enchantment, illusion, imagery, symbolism, alliteration. Symbolism: the use of an object to represent something other than its literal meaning is known as symbolism. It's an impactful poetic technique created by the vivid and creative articular of reality. This poem brims with the mention of such symbols representing the struggle of women, their suspects' desire, and their innumerable effort to escape for the culture of the patriotic society. Alliteration: Das use alliteration from the very beginning of the poem, such as in them, like days and very brown bone. Here, the D and B sound are repeated in neighboring words. It also occurs in the following instance. The citation.
My question is, what does Kamala Das say about language in an introduction?
kept your
Kamala Das
mobile
says,
standing or rotated one? Simple lessons you are forgetting. You are in masters and you have to teach you ABCD. Yes, now you ask.
So, Nehal, my question is, what does Kamala Das say about language in an introduction?
Kamala Das says about in language and introduction, simple and political language.
Nehal, my question is how this poem contributes to feminist theory. How does it represent feminism?
This poem contributes to feminist theories like self-love, sexuality.
So still need to prepare. Still last two both, Nidhi and Nehalba. Your questions, you are not able to answer the questions properly. So need to prepare and be ready for the basic questions and how will you justify that.
Hello, myself Mayuri Pandya, and second day 202 Indian writing in English, post independence literature, and my topic is Midnight Children as a postmodern novel. Author Salman Rushdie was born on 19 June 1947. He was born and educated in Bombay in a St. Cathedral until the age of 14. This is the brief introduction about author. Postmodernism. Postmodernism in literature, it collapses the distinction between genre and convention. The narrator continually undermine his own apparently reliable narrative, and we are left wondering, can we trust this story at all? Postmodernism suggests that power relations structure all social trust and approaches and even conception of reality. Salim Sinai as a narrator, he was judge every character by his moral, like his mother relationship with other man. He was judged by his moral. Postmodernism is about language, about how it controls, how it determines meaning, and how we can try to exert control thought the language, about how language restricts, close down, instead that it stand for something. Postmodernism is about how we are defined within the language and within the specific historical, social, culture matrices. It about race, class, gender, erotic identity, and practice, nationality, age, ethnic, ethnicity. It's about difference. It's about power and powerlessness, about empowerment, and about all the stages in between and beyond. The unthought of the postmodernism is about everything that comes before the shown up in the districts and the brilliance and every day of now. It about those trends that we trace and trace and trace, but no, not to a conclusion. We know that Midnight Children was heavily connected with the historical events like Prime Minister Indira Gandhi and some other events. Postmodernism is about history, but not the kind of history that lets us think we can know the past. History is the postmodernism movement becomes history and question. It asks, was history gets told? In was name? For what purpose? Postmodernism is about histories not told, retold, or untold. It was against the power or represented by the fictions. As postmodern text, Midnight Children is a fully engaged and deconstruction of its own every move of narratively. It's directly discrets from the Tristan Shandy. Tristan Shandy is that written by Lawrence Strand. These a novel have the 9 volumes, and it was our Tristan Sandy is that narrator and protagonist like Salim Shinai, and Shinai uh, told us his life experience and past event, and similar like Tristan Sandy, he was also told and wrote his own story. And the Tristan Sandy is a full title is The Life and Opinions of Tristan Sandy, a gentleman. When you read the novel, you are so carried away by the story that you think it really you scarcely pay attention to how it was created. What effect does Rushdie calling your attention to the behind the scenes activity of his novel have on you? Does it spoil your fun? Rushdie not only destroy the illusion of reality that you normally expect from fiction, or a film, but also kills the suspense by spelling the beans much ahead. What do you make of this? Like Padma, you would like to how what happened the next. Similarly, when Salim keeps referring to the events that happen much later, you curiosity is sufficiently aroused to make your request him to go on. Like in the last part of that novel, we think that after marriage of Shinai and Parvati, we are thinking that he was now he was telling us that after marriage incident and the love and other things, but he was not telling like about that. But he was telling us many of historical event like in Rajasthan. Mm, what call nuclear test in Rajasthan. Indira Gandhi is born. His a hair like white, black and brown hair. It was like connected with his political career like that. Is her husband's death. Is her 2 sons. He was telling about that politics and historical event. It was kill our curiosity. And if as a reader we read any novel that we think that now it was like this way, like he was telling his personal life. He was telling like that about his child, but he was a different he was choosing a different path. He was telling about historical events and other things. In the postmodern novel, other texts are incorporated and premated the fictional world that novel, the multiple and heterogeneous, the different. This is the uh, pluralizing rhetorical of postmodernism. In Midnight's Children, Hindu mythology recurs defining the people and event, juxtaposing history with a timeless myth. The real and the fantastic are similarly overlaid in the text by its relation of characters to a mythical archetypes within the Hindu pantheon. Salim has a large nose, as does Dr. Aziz, recalling a god Ganesha. A central myth which is mentioned in the novel is the story of Shiva and Parvati. Shiva and Parvati's son Adam have different ears. Like he had a similar like elephant ears. It was like that he was a son of goddess Shiv and Parvati. It was like Ganesh. Rushdie is paradoxically anti-totalizing totalized image of historic graphic metafiction process in a chutnification of history. Each chapter of novel is like a pickle jar that shaped its contents by its very form. Salim is a clearly playing is that understand him and his nation. We have to shallow to his literally preposterous story. One is happily to note that unlike the other postmodern novel, Rushdie novel is not empty play of sign. Rather, it is rooted in a very real history, and it's grounded in a particular problem and a dilemma of a particular society. Thank you.
My question is, what are the postmodernist features of Rushdie's Midnight Children?
Postmodern feature like a hybridity, telling history with the fiction and other like metafiction in that magic realism. These are the feature of postmodern literature.
Mayuri, what is the conflict of Midnight Children?
In Midnight's Children, a conflict between power and one who was powerless, and one they are emerge from their background, but in a powerful and power conflict and politics is the main conflict in Midnight's Children.
Hello everyone. Today, our second day of presentation. Today, my topic is about Indianness used in the poetry of Nissim Ezekiel. Nissim Ezekiel, born in 16 December 1922 and died in 9th January 2004. He was an Indian Jewish poet, actor, playwright, editor, and art critic. He was a foundational figure in colonial India's literary history, specifically for Indian writing in English. Ezekiel's poetry seems to be a comment on the Indian social scenario where he tries to present what, how, and why of the various aspects of Indian society. He not only tries to highlight the social facts and problems which Indians face because of their poverty, superstition, squalor. What do Indianness mean? Indianness is a term which in itself is quite controversial. It is the sum total of the culture patterns of India and the deep-seated idea and ideals were political, personal, economic, and spiritual. These ideas not only affect the Indian mind, but the same are also prevalent in the various social relationships like man, woman, man, God, etc. These ideals or ideologies play their respective role in all types of social scenarios. Nonetheless, one can say that a deep study of verse of Ezekiel provides its readers a true picture of an insight in the Indian society and its various aspects. Professor V.K. Gokak defines Indianness as a composite awareness in the matter of race, milieu, language, and religion. Considering this quote, if we examine Ezekiel's poetry, he is a true Indian poet by all means. Now let's see how. Nissim Ezekiel is actually and painfully conscious of the deficiencies and defects of the Indian people. In an autobiographical poem, Background Causally, he himself, being a Jew, a minority in India, depicts the trouble and traumas that he underwent throughout his life. He ridicules the caste barriers that make the people confined into the narrow domestic wall of caste consciousness that prevent the world from being a global perspective. Nissim Ezekiel writes that I am not a Hindu and my background makes me a natural outsider. But even in such unwelcome condition, he prefers to live in India. It shows genuine love for India. In the next lines, poet expresses that I have made my commitments now. This is one to say where I am. My backward place is where I am. Uh, in the uh, Being an Indian Ezekiel advocates the importance of Vasudev Kutumbakam, or what we call Sarvadharma Sambhav. In order to state his Indianness, he chose to portray some failure Indian saint. In the poem, in India, he portrays the squalor, heat, and ugliness of an Indian metropolis, the barbaric city sick with slums. In this stanza of in India, he says that whenever sun rise in India, he seen the beggars, hawkers was sleep on the street, and he was live in live in and in a dirty place. So he said that the man and God both are die. It shows that the Indian metropolises myth making natural is an essential aspect of the Indian Indian psyche, and it is to be found in rural background. The poem is contrad around a crisis of the scorpion bites of which the poet's mother is victimized. Uh, Typical villagers go in a folk to the poet's house to suggest whatever remedies they can, as it is the typical nature of Indian peasant. They regards it with the theory of previous birth, while some with a theory of karma. Another poem of Ezekiel is how the English lesson ended. Is the example of such poems in which he has raised some social issues. In the poem, Ezekiel shows the condition of female child in Muslim families, where at the school going and playing stage, they are subjected to get married and become a housewife. Uh, Child marriage, which is one of the oldest Indian social tradition, as issue, Ezekiel seems to highlight in this poem. In the poem, The Patriot, he spreads the importance of peace and non-violence. In the poem background, casually the poet hints the importance of quality and brotherhood. The poet hopes ideal and in his poem, but he never allows dreamy concept of India to enter in the poems. He thinks of the improvement in the to the present condition. He wants to bring Ram Rajya back. In the poem Patriot, the poet, it was a stanza that in a poem The Patriot, Gujarati, Marathians, Hindiwala, all brothers. Though some are having funny habits, still you tolerate me, I tolerate you. One day Ram Rajya is surely coming. The poet becomes habituated to use typical Indian usage. The poet does not let typical Indian drinking to escape from his pen. In a very Indian way, the poet proves Indian drink to be the best. The poet writes in the Patriot, you want one glass lassi, very good for digestion, with little salt, lovely drink, better than wine. The use of typical Indian words like one gonda fellow, Indira Ben, a glass of lassi, pan burkha. His poem The Patriot, in which Ezekiel expressed his deep concern for the contemporary problems that India face, and again use of Indian English shows Ezekiel's grip on the working of the Indian mind. It was also stanza in Patriot, Pakistan behaving like this, China behaving like this. It is making me very sad. I am telling you. Conclusion that Ezekiel's poetry contains various aspects of Indianness. Nissim Ezekiel has skillfully used most of the aspect of Indian life and cultures in his poetry. Indianness is a vital element in Ezekiel's thought, feeling, and imagery. Indianness has become one of the major theme of Ezekiel's poetry, which he treats as an intense personal exploration. To conclude, Nissim Ezekiel has beautifully used the long history of Indianness as the socio-culture identity, its different expression and its rich variety in his poetry. This is my reference.
Khushboo, you can find any common background of Nizam Ezekiel works.
In Nissim Ezekiel's works are in his poetry background is also define the religious, social, cultural and spiritual background the in the poem the Knight of Scorpion. He used religious uh, religious and spirituality and myth to define his poetry.
Khushboo, what are the elements of Indianness in Nissim Ezekiel poem?
The elements of Indianness in Nissim Ezekiel poem is that uh, social, religious, economic, uh, and cultural.
Good afternoon, everyone. In my today's presentation about Indian English literature post-independence, my topic is comparison between Nissim Ezekiel's The Patriot and the Robert Browning's poem with the same title. This is my information, and in the presentation we are going to see about both the poets, definition of patriot, Nissim Ezekiel's poem, Robert Browning's poem, comparison between them. Beginning with the introduction of the poem, Nissim Ezekiel is an Indian Jewish poet who studied in Mumbai and was a Jew. He is a foundational figure in the post-colonial India's literary history, and he is applauded for the subtle, restrained, and well-crafted diction dealing with common and simple themes. He is also considered as the father of modern Indian English poetry by many critics. He has been honored with the Padma Shri Award by the President in 1988 and Sahitya Academy Cultural Award in 1983. He is an Indian Jewish poet, and Robert Browning is an English poet playwright whose dramatic monologues put him high among the Victorian poets. He is noted for irony, characterization, dark humor, social commentary, historical settings, and challenging vocabulary and syntax. Looking at the definition of a patriot, it is a noun, and the word means one who loves and supports his or her country. According to the Merriam-Webster and according to Oxford, a person who loves their country and who is ready to defend it against an enemy. Here we see in the definition, it is saying a person who is loving a country and is ready to support and defend from the enemy. But when we will see the poem of these two writers, we will realize they have changed. We are getting a different meaning of a patriot. Traditional patriotic poems we have also studied, like the Soldier by Rupert Brooke, and it is a sweet and the fitting to die for one's country by Wilfred Owen. Uh, Both these poems are talking about soldiers who are in army. The poems are war poems who are in army and the suffer what the soldiers are going through is described in this poem. Looking at Nissim Ezekiel's poem, it was published in 1977. It is a commentary on post-independence of India. Here we get, while reading the poem, we realize that the poet is trying to criticize the changing habits of Indians after independence. But we also get a question that is he criticizing India or the changing habits of Indians? The language he has used is very simple, the language which we use in a regular life, being an Indian. And it is in the first person, as the first line itself says, I am standing for peace and non-violence. He has exaggerated Indian English language and he has used present continuous tense uh, more simultaneously. In every sentence, we will see ing, like, but modern generation is neglecting too much going for a fashion and foreign thing. Here in the line itself, we see that Ezekiel is criticizing the new generation, post-independent generation, for going too much for fashion and foreign thing. But in the very next line, Ezekiel is writing that other day I am reading newspaper. That newspaper is also a Times of India, which he is using for improving his own English language. And here the poet himself is contradicting with himself. In this poem, Ezekiel is trying to reject the non-Indian influences. The poem is humorous, it is a satire, it is irony also, and hypocrisy of poet is also seen as we saw in the before lines. This poetry is also criticizing the happenings of India. This poem is in 1977 when there was emergency announced by Indira Gandhi, and the words sentence like regeneration, remuneration, and contraception were used in that emergency for the forced sterilization of the people to control population. He is comparing wine and lassi. He himself is comparing the foreign drink and the Indian drink, and the words also he is using is completely total. We might see that when we are communicating in our class or in our society, we use words like it is completely different or like it is different. અલગ અલગ વસ્તુ છે એવું કહેવા માટે અલગ અલગ ને different, and that type of language is used in this poem also. Here the question we feel is he criticizing India or is acclaiming India? He is talking a lot about India for using such language, over using of ing in the language, bringing our own native language in English by using different. So is this is a criticism of India or is trying to normalize the thing? This is the question seen here. Here we also see Indianness when he is referring to Gandhiji and he is also in a hope that one day India will be a Ram Rajya where there will be no fights among states or there will be no fights among nations. Here he is trying to say that India doesn't want to fight. India is wishing for a world peace, but Pakistan is behaving like this and China is behaving like that. The regular language which is used in our communication is also seen here. Now, looking at Robert Browning's poem, The Patriot, it was published in 1855. It is a tragic tale, dramatic monologue, and irony. It is divided into 6 stanzas, and rhyming scheme is A B A B A. In this poem, one person, there is no description of any incidents what happened with the person, but as we are reading the poem in the first two stanza, it is described that the person who is coming to a countryman who is coming to his country is feeling accomplished. Everyone is celebrating him and welcoming him, while in the end we see that that person, a countryman, is taken for the execution. He is going to be punished for some type of crime. Here the main lesson or moral or theme the Robert Browning is telling is about a philosophical truth of existence. One person might be important at a particular period of time, but society might not remember the good deeds. One time a person is doing anything bad or harmful, he or she will be definitely punished. Here, this poem is a harsh critique of public sentiment and morality. In this poem, as it is projecting the philosophical truth of existence, which is also mentioned in Shakespeare's play As You Like It, which is all the world's stage and all the men and women merrily players. They have their exit and their entrance. This is the truth of existence in Shakespeare's play, and this poem says, "Thus I entered and thus I go." Comparing these two poems, as we define the word patriot and so the traditional patriotic poems where soldiers are given a more priority. Here we see that under the title of patriot, poets are criticizing society and criticizing or acclaiming society. The similarity in both this poem is it is an irony, satire, and hypocrisy is seen. Both these poems are monologue. In Ezekiel's poem, at the end, in the last 3 lines, we realize that someone is sitting against him and he is talking and now he is going. The title in both the poems are failing to give the gist of the poem. Both are the critique of a nation or a public. Different from traditional poems, both are having an hopeful end. In Ezekiel's poem, we see that he is hoping for a Ram Rajya, and in this poem, Robert Browning's poem, the poet is hoping in the last that the society is not able to give, is failing to give balance is failing to forgive countrymen, but he might get the justice in the heaven, justice from the God. And both this poem is trying to bring a new type of patriot. A patriot by Nissim Ezekiel brought out is to acclaim or to criticize the nation as being a good nationalist. And in the next poem, Robert Browning's poem, the patriot is one who is successfully able to see how the society is and is trying to make society aware that what is happening and what society is doing. The contrast is Ezekiel's poem seems to be humorous, while Browning's poem seems to be tragic. The Ezekiel's poem doesn't have a perfect rhyming scheme. It has a more use of ing, present continuous tense, while Robert's poem is having a specific rhyming scheme. The use of language in both the poems are different. Ezekiel talks about the post-independent India, while Browning is talking about the philosophy of existence. The Ezekiel's poem is having the reference of historical event of emergency by Indira Gandhi, while the next poem by Browning has a myth of Icarus. These are my works cited. Thank you.
Zil, my question is that what difference is seen in people's attitude towards the patriot early and now the patriot?
In the Robert Browning's poem, first when there is no specific description of an incident that why everyone is celebrating two countrymen and then why he is being executed. There is no specific any clarification. But the way he is celebrated and welcome, we can interpret that he might have returned from the war or some have won some fight which might be like great achievement for the country. And in the end there is one hint of a myth of Icarus, and that in that myth one it is a father and Icarus is a child, and father is giving him a wings of wax, and because they wanted to come out from the prison, they were giving he gave him wings and told him not to go near the sun because the wax might melt and he might die by falling down. But as he got wings, Icarus got over ambitious and he went near the sun and then fell down as the wings were melted and he fell into the sea and he died. Same thing with the theme. Here we can interpret with the myth. We can interpret that the patriot with so much love from the countrymen might got over ambitious and started doing something which might have hurted or might be harmful for the countrymen, and for that he might be going for the execution, which is in the end of the poem.
Zil, you can find any language difference in Nizam is the patriotic and Robert Brown is the patriot.
Yes, in both the poem, there is a large difference in the usage of the language. Nissim Ezekiel is using Indian English language, where we find the words like different. In the name of Indira Gandhi, we see Indira Band, the reference to Lassi, and the clear Indian words are used. And there is an exaggerated and overuse of present continuous tense, that is ing, and the language like we use in our native like alag and different such type of language is used, while in Robert Browning's poem we see it has a good syntax in language. It uses high English language words which can be said as a British language. He is using myth, allegory and various types which can be called a specific English poem. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Today, a second day presentation. Today's my topic is magic realism in Midnight Children's. This is my personal detail. Midnight Children's about the author. The Midnight Children's written by Ahmad Salim Rushdie. He born on 19 June 1947, place of Bombay in India. Country is India. Citizenship is United Kingdom. United States. The father named Anis Ahmed Rushdie. She is a lawyer, and her mother name is Negin Bhatt. He is a teacher, and education is King's College, Cambridge. The first, what is magic realism? The Oxford Dictionary tell to the literary terms define the magic realism as a kind of a modern fiction in which frolics and fantastical elements are included in a narrative that maintains that the reliable tone of objectively realistic report. Realism mix and dispute the ordinary everyday reality with a strange, impossible, and miraculous episode and power in a social life. Magic realism is a genre of the literary that depict the real world as having in undercurrent of magic or a fantasy. Magic realism is a part of a realism genre of fiction. Magic realism of history. What is the history of magic realism? The terms of meticulous realism, in which translate to the magic realism, was the first used in 1925 by German art critic Franz Rose in his book Explain Newsom. Magister Realism, he used the terms of describe the new scenic or a new objectly a style of a painting that was popular in Germany. At that time, that was alternative to the romanticism of extremism. Characteristic of the magic realism, uh, fantasy elements, hybridity, sense of mystery, irony, supernatural and natural, metafiction, and politic critic. Classic magical realism, some example. One example, 100 Years of Solitude by Grabiller. Second is Midnight Children's by Salman Rushdie. The House of the Spirits by Isabel Allens. Beloved by the Toni Morrison. Like Water for Chocolate by Luria. The Wind, a Brit Chronicle by Yuri. The Ocean at the End of the Lake by Neil. The modern example of magic realism, ruler though it by A.S. King, Beast of Extraordinary Curriculums by Ruth Emil Langs, the particularly Sadness of Lemon Cake by Emil Brender. I found some example in Hindi cinema in serials. First is Abracadabra in film. In whole film is the magic school, and the child is to teach the magic in use in our life. Second is Mr. India. In his film. Anil Kapoor is to hide, and he not to the he he not to the scene. His second is third is Bhutnath written, also Bhutnath, and some example for the Tarzan, Car, Harry Potter, Balveer, Shaktiman. I found recently released film Brahmastra. Brahmastra also he's connected the magic realism in Brahmastra. Ranveer Kapoor, his role of Shiva, and he is to the he is to the ordinary spirit, and he is Shakti give by the God, and he is the Shiv, and some. He's some magic power in her in his in Midnight Children's Magic Realism. So Salman Rushdie's Midnight Children is the tale of magical realism that tells the story of Salim Sinai, a man born previously as India became an independent country because he was born between midnight and 1 o'clock. Salim has a magical power of telepathy, and in the book he is an allegory for events in India's surrounding independence and the partition. A scholar says the magic realism of Midnight Children's allowed Rushdie to critique partition and write to some of the most significant post-colonial works. Magical realism can provide distance for the harsher reality that the work of critic, therefore allowing more freedom and critique. I agree with those scholar. I think Midnight Children is a very important work of post-colonial literature, and the magical realism is a major part of that. I don't think that magical realism is the sole reason Midnight Children is so seminal. But without it, the book would not be the same. In Midnight Children start the tale Salim Sinai, the story of Parvati to his grandfather and Sinai family. He is told that my nose similar to my grandfather Salim Sinai, and he was one connected with the movement of Jallianwala Bagh Hatyakan. In his Ahmad Aziz, he is connected with his grandfather of Jallianwala Bagh Hatyakan, and he is a big nose to say save her life in General Dyer to General Dyer to order by and he is saved. And he's another of the Midnight Children. He's in his in one other Rushdie's essay, The Imaginary Homelands. Rushdie reflect the views of Jamnos and Tonic, saying that the history always abusing fact are hard to establish and capable of being given any meaning. Reality is built on prejudice, conventions, and ignorance, as well as our practice and knowledges. I have choose Shakespeare's novel The Tempest and Midnight Children's compare and difference. So the Tempest novel written by Shakespeare is 1611, and his 5 act is the first performer, and the character are the Miranda, Caliban, Prospero, Ferenda, and Ariel. So in the Tempest novel, in main character the Prospero, Miranda, Caliban, and Ariel. So in magic realism with connected, the Tempest is a novel in Iceland based, and Iceland on three live people: Caliban, Prospero, and his 11-year daughter Miranda, and Caliban, Ariel. So his magical power, and Prospero has to the magical power to the wind and virtues, and he stay in Iceland on 12 years. So, and similarity and difference is the Tempest and the Midnight Children. So Shakespeare's and treatment of magic power claim reality in the play. The Tempest is to be separate from. He uses magical art in curtain others' plays. The magic elements to beings in the play act not of their own free will, but the audience to the will a human being. Moreover, spiritual beings represent not the principle of evil, but the principle of good. Prospero magic realism is benevolent and magnific. This magic power is to be recognized from the evil art of Synchros who ruled our Ariel and another spirit on the Iceland. In another side was the in Midnight Children's, the Rushdie used the narrative style of magic realism in which myth and fantasy are blended with a real life. He uses the narrative technique of magic realism to brew the distance between fantasy and reality. He give an equality acceptations of ordinary and the extraordinary. He uses the lyrics and fantastic writing in exclamation of the character of human existence and in implicit criticism of society. Particularly that implied anyway, Rushdie can be considered as a writer who play with the narrative technique of magic realism. He has achieved a very right to be called one of the greatest magic realists ever. And both the novels, both the Shakespeare and Rushdie would like to focus on the perfect picture of magic realism, though creating the character like Prospero, Caliban, Ariel, and Salim Sinai. As the impact in the literary text, The Tempest and Midnight Children, they also would like to show the elements of magic realism, supernatural, fantasy, real, unreal, mystery, and imagination of 6th century England and 20th century Indian subcontinent represently. Those two texts bear a testimony of a perfect image of magic reality of the two authors, represent social system of the age. Prospero, with the help of magic power, had curbed his Icelander. On the other hand, Salim Sinai has fostered a real picture of social, political, and birth a new nation through his magic power. This is my citation.
Janvi, my question is the only reason for using magic realism in the work is to make work attractive? What are your views about it?
It's only reason use magic realism like more effective. No, uh, not only magic realism attract the both work in the Midnight Children's not on only focus in magic realism, also in focus is partition, Hindu Muslim religious, and the second is the Tempest magic realism also, but he is the Tempest novel. He is revenges and give the kingdom. So I'm not the I'm not the aggressive, only the magic realism in both works.
And how does magical realism reveal new perspective of reality?
uh, uh, in now in so in nowadays some are the realities in magic realism. So the few of people, educated and uneducated, we believe in magic. Also educated people in believe in magic. So he's some sant, gods, like some power. So he is believe in nowadays with the magic of perspective in reality.
Okay, before I give final feedback, a few observations. Let me share some of the screens to talk about it. And the final question that was asked here, uh, this question you have to ask is that why magic realism? So you have to try to find that answer, that why the narrators are using this technique of magic realism. It is obviously not only for glamorizing the text or just to make something new, but apart from that, thematically, socioculturally, as a very interesting tool of post-coloniality, how it is used, that one needs to investigate also. One of the post-colonial arguments can be made in sense that uh, English novel uh, has its own essential quality of realism, and magic realism is challenging that characteristics of novel. So as if like narrators are trying to write back to the empire that we don't accept your standard of telling a story. So that is one of the arguments that can be given, which is rooted in post-colonial argument, that you defiantly stand against the narrative technique of the English novel, and you use magic realism, which is a kind of a reality of the lived culture in Latin America, in India, and many parts of the world also. And few more things you can question still and get a better answer for that also. Uh, The another question that was one in Khushboo's presentation, there was this point of Indianness in Nissim Ezekiel. Yeah? So, as yesterday also we were talking, first your concern is if your topic has this word Indianness, very first thing we have to find is what is Indianness and how to find Indianness. That is the first quest that we need to do. And so when we like, let me share this screen. If you will just like Google with this question, as we time and again say that if you have a question, the answers are already there. But having a question is very important thing. So Indianness in Indian literature, you will come to this article published by Sahitya Akademi. And if you'll read this, it will give a very interesting way that how Indianness is seen in different contexts also. How various people have conceptualized this idea. I don't know whether in the morning session or in this session we talked yesterday about this. The Indian literature comprised only Vedic and Sanskrit literatures when Albrecht Weber wrote his History of Indian Literature in 1852. But it was way back 1852 where still they were not able to realize that beyond Vedic and Sanskrit traditions also there were practices of writing. Then later on in 1907, after around half a century, when Morris is writing a history, he included Pali and Prakrit also, Prakrit language and Pali also. And then later on, many regional languages and their literatures also started becoming part of Indian literature. And the very idea of Indianness started becoming very complex, with lots of different opposite ways of looking at the things also. So this article tries to see, this is a Malayali article, Malayalam article translated here, and tries to speak from that angle about India and Indianness also. So that is the way to like first into going into what is Indianness. Nissim Ezekiel is an outsider. He's a Jew living in Mumbai, Israeli Jew, but lives in Mumbai. And so he has that outsider's way of looking at India, and he makes fun of India also. Or like sometimes when the way outsiders can look, the insiders cannot look. Uh, so that is the very idea operating. Somebody who is an outsider but lives in India. The insight is a little bit different. So then Indianness keeps on changing its dynamics among those. So that way you have to investigate this. Then we had this. This question also was good. This was raised to about hybridity. Nidhi presented on hybridity, and you were not able to give proper answers to the questions which were raised. This also needs to be seen and investigated in a different way. This question of hybridity. If you'll again Google this question of hybridity or the critics of hybridity or the problems of hybridity or why that we require, you will find very interesting articles. This is one published in Sage Journal, Between Purity and Hybridity, Techno-Scientific and Ethnic Myths of Brazil. Now you will find articles in Brazil, in Korea, so like all the countries in the world dabble with this idea about purity and hybridity and different things. And normally they all will say that the very concept of purity is connected with a mythical way of looking at it. And all these societies have their own myths also, where the modern science busts all those myths about purity and that. So that can be seen. Even this article, it is about Korea, blood purity and scientific independence, blood science and post-colonial struggles in Korea. So this also is a very good article to see how this blood science and blood purity is investigated also. And even this also of hybridity, race and science, how the science tries to look, scientific way of looking at this is to be seen. Then the point that comes in some of the articles they have discussed this is that this question of hybridity is against the concept of essentialism. So right from the days of Plato, Aristotle, essentialism was considered as something good or positive. Essentialism means everybody is born with a kind of an essence. Means we are, even before we are born, it is decided what we are going to be. So our being is decided by this essence. So this mythical idea that before our birth, everything about us is written, and we just have to open the chapters of that book. We can't do anything with that. So it has to keep on opening in that way. Nirav, this answer is for you. And if that call is important, then I will not give the answer. So then this is because you asked the question. And then you have a call that is more important, then I don't have to waste other students' time in answering that thing. Yeah? So this essence, what is this essence? And so existentialists, and they have questioned that existence precedes essence. Yeah, when Simone de Beauvoir and they are saying this. So this all traditional idea was essence precedes existence. And so once you are belonging to one blood, one race, you are supposed to be somebody good or something like this or that. And that is how you are seen. Now against that, this hybridity idea is coming. So this conflict is to be seen, or there it is to be located, that what is this idea of essentialism and hybridity idea. And then there are many critics of hybridity also, and they also like try to criticize or find loopholes in Homi Ke Baba's theory of hybridity also. That also is a different part which can be seen there. But actually this is essentialism in this. The mythically everything is said, like even in India we believe that before our birth everything is decided and we just have to live that life. That is essentialism. So this is the mythical ideas. Against that, this these works are there. And this eugenics idea, because you use the word eugenics in your question, this eugenist and other thing. So when you see this, the definition of eugenics and eugenist, what we find is this, that it is about selective breeding as proposed by human, proposed for human improvement. That is what it says. The proposed improvement of the human species by encouraging or permitting a specific people with a specific kind of genetic characteristics which are judged desirable. Now, who will judge this as desirable? Who will be the people? So again, those people who are in the power, they will decide who should marry and who shouldn't marry. And they will also like control that, well, we can marry multiple times and you can't marry any time. So again, that as the past traditions were there about polygamy, that which says that uh, it has been regarded with disfavor since the Nazi period. So how Nazis use this idea about superiority of race, and then you start eliminating the other people. What you start doing is, as a part of this, you start eliminating, you start killing the people. So the way Jews were started being killed, and this, so these are the problems, the real life problems of looking at this. And so we need to like celebrate hybridity in different forms also. So that's how this question of hybridity and that debate needs to be located. Okay, now let me give this final feedback about this. So today morning also we have to tell the students who come late. Nirav also was late yesterday also and today also. So once you are not told, you repeat. Not only you repeat, the other two learn from you also for doing that. So we have to pinpoint and tell that you have to be punctual and in the time before the teacher enters. You should be taking your seat. You should not have a habit, first let teacher enter and then I will enter in the class. If it is done deliberately or without knowing, whatever way, but it is wrong. So that one you have to keep in mind, because otherwise next day the another two will also learn that. So what we are behaving, one has to be very careful about it. And we don't want to say these things when things are going live or recorded. But well, if you don't improve your behavior, then we have to tell it live, and while the things are recorded. Also in the morning also we have to tell the same thing to one or two students, that we want to tell all instructions in advance before the live begins. But if you remain absent, then we'll have to pinpoint the things there. Okay, so Vachchalata presented quite well on life and works of Salman Rushdie. Slides were also well prepared, good. Even the images and other things were quite well collected and presented. Content also was well organized in this. Citation things are still there as a part of a problem with many, or well, integrating of citation is still something that is lacking there. You also included contemporary happenings also, so that was good. Nirav talked about discrimination and contemporary relevance. So there are also some good example of contemporary happenings with there, in context with Meena Kandasamy's poem. Citation also needs to be worked out there also. Nilay talked about 3 prose writers. It was good, well presented about 3 writers, but one thing you have to see is that you have to connect all the 3. Like what is the connecting thread? That is very important to be seen in these 3 writers. So how, like you talked about themes of their prose writings. But also something about style of their writing. Is it similar style, or is it a different? That can be seen in that context also. And one more thing, like if anybody wants to try, one can see, because we have studied many prose writers in the history paper. In last 2 semesters, we have studied the history from Chaucer's time to the Victorian time, and there was a separate section of prose writers. So if you can like connect this Indian prose writers with the English prose writers and see, or the way like William J. Long you have studied, then how that historian is looking at the prose writers. That way also, if you want to look. So if you don't want to compare with them, but the way that historian has seen, if that way we can see the other prose, then also it can be significant to be seen. Nidhi presented on hybridity, and your topic was hybridity, so you should be like very clear in that and able to answer the questions about hybridity. That is, main word in your topic is the main concept should be very clear, and you should be able to answer that also. And about this also, the novel cannot survive if hybridity is removed. That novel, it is very important part of that. That's why that swapping of children, other things are very important. So if you remove hybridity, then novel may not survive as such. Other things about that we have just discussed. Nehalba on Kamala Das. You are also not able to answer some of the questions. I think it is connected. Visible? You are. Okay, so and Mayuri presented on postmodern aspects in Midnight's Children. That was also well prepared and presented. Khushboo on Nissim Ezekiel, Indianness. We talked about that, the point of Indianness. So even that question was asked about what is Indianness. So you should have like clear-cut idea how we look at Indianness. Jheel on Patriot, 2 poems were compared. One insight is required, that is how comparatist looks at when we compare the thing. So who are the comparatists? Maybe in the next semester you are going to study. So then you will come to know that comparative and translation studies. So how to compare, what to compare. There are different schools in comparative studies also. So through which school you are looking at the comparison, that all also you will be able to get some idea, but that is still lacking. So keep that in mind, that when you study comparative studies, at that time all this comparison will be fulfilled. There is still a missing block in first semester, second, third, in all the three. All those who have made presentations on comparing things, there is a missing block. So that you will have to fill when you study in semester 4. Then that idea of comparing will get completed. So that you have to keep in. Otherwise, the previous one you will see time and again, you will see that this was up to the mark. This was good. We got this many points. So it was ideal. No, it is still not. So wait for the 4th semester, the last part, to see how that missing block can be identified. So you yourself will be able to find some of the points which can be added there. And finally, it was by Janvi, Magic Realism in this also. Okay, so these were the presentations of the day. Tomorrow we have a break. Tomorrow no presentations. Day after tomorrow will be there, and your turn will be in the morning. From day after tomorrow, you will be coming early morning. So by 10:30 you reach and be ready by 10:45. So we can start before 11. Things can be started. So we can give some time for feedback also. Okay, we end this.